Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. I'm Mark Stein, Thrive founder and your podcast host. We're creating sustainable, inclusive, and multi-generational residential communities. Our mission is to combat the epidemic of isolation, revitalize communities, and help others discover the many benefits of engaged community living by offering unique and ecologically sustainable co-living options. In this podcast series, join us as we discuss co-living, in addition to bringing you interesting people from around the world who are doing cool things to expand your knowledge and satisfy your curiosity. Through this podcast, learn more about our concept and see how Thrive co-living communities will bring together people from all walks of life who want to enjoy the best of independent and group living. To find out more about us, please visit our website at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. Thanks for watching and enjoy the podcast. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. Always a mouthful, and I'm very grateful every time I can get it out. So glad to have you here and back. And I have Tash Alexander as my guest today. And she is the founder of a not-for-profit in London called Heads Held, that I'm not able to say, Heads Held High, a great alliteration. And we'll let her talk about that. And she's also a comedy writer and performer. And she's just written a pilot, right?
Yeah, first episode.
Great. Yeah. So we'll talk about that and your comedy, your passion for comedy, as well as your passion for helping people, and especially at-risk youth. So welcome and glad to have you on the podcast.
So lovely to be here. So lovely to be here. I enjoy your accent immensely. It fills me with joy. So you could be the one that talks more than me, but it's probably not what you want.
Well, and as you probably know, Americans love a British accent. And if it's Australian, if it's South Africa, we always think it's British. We can't tell the difference, but we Americans love your accent too. So
why, thank you.
It's mutual.
Thank you.
So let's start with the not-for-profit. And it really touched me because I have had a background in social services working with at-risk youth and specifically offenders. So talk about what you do in the not-for-profit.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I set up Head Held High about 9 years ago, and it took me ages to come up with the name. And I remember speaking to numerous friends, and I got quite specific there. It had to be head and not heads, because my focus was we've all got to stand strong on our own. And I've just noticed through the coaching world, and I was running a business beforehand, that I was really more focused on and tuned into the young people who were displaying challenging behavior or lacking confidence, motivation. And there was always a reason for it, obviously. And I felt like there are so many reasons in life for us to walk around with our head down, whether it's your environment, your past, your financial situation, your limiting self-beliefs, the list is endless. And I wanted to use my background in comedy and acting as well in my business. So the workshops are very interactive. So people feel the change on the inside and therefore then make the changes on the outside. So over the last 9 years, we've been working with a lot of young people on the verge of exclusion. So they're in secondary schools, they're in pupil referral units, youth offending teams, and just getting into trouble, being misunderstood, lacking in motivation, direction. Knife crime is obviously a massive issue in this country. We work with an anti-knife crime charity as well called the Bank and Seller Trust. So we combined our resources and came up with a program together. And there's a massive, I call it a pandemic actually. There's this sort of big man attitude where you have a 15, 16-year-old who's totally dominated by this big man exterior. And then when you break them down and finally on a good day make them cry, that's when you can actually sort of wake up that true vulnerable 15-year-old who hasn't got an adult to talk to, or who's getting in with the wrong crowd because it's the only option. It's something I feel very, very passionate about, because I see it all over in this country, specifically every school I go to. And I mean, we'll talk about the funding issues in a minute, but all the schools, they want us, and then it's an issue of like, how do we get in? Where's the funding from? Not only do we work with the young people on the verge of exclusion, we also work with unemployed. We run a stand-up comedy course called Stand Up for Yourself to help improve mental health and well-being. We just ran a fundraiser at the Comedy Store, which is one of the top comedy clubs in London, had some celebrity comedians as well as some of our participants performing. And there's a fantastic young person called Ro, and I totally believe it's been a game changer for them, because they've started doing stand-up, but they also really, really struggle, and I know they wouldn't mind me saying, with their mental health on a daily basis. And it's, we run that course to help people dig deep to find the funny in their lives, and that's when you reveal the bigger person. So it's all very sort of highly motivational, setting people weekly tasks so they start making changes alongside us from the moment they meet us. We show a lot of motivational footage, so they're quite used to seeing clips of Pursuit of Happiness or Oprah Winfrey, Lisa Nichols, just anyone. There's a fantastic clip by Terry Crews, who you probably know, an actor. No, he everybody loves Chris. He's quite a well-known actor. He grew up around domestic violence and just shares an experience of how violence is just not an option, but it's obviously seems to be the easiest option with a lot of young people. So yeah, I feel very passionate about this work. There's a massive need. It's very diverse. I've got wonderful coaches. They've all had a lot of life experience. They've got to be able to connect with a young person, be open. We do anything to kind of break through this wall of us and them. And it always astonishes me when one of the questions we ask at the beginning, how many of you have got an adult to talk to? It doesn't have to be family, it could be a guy in the shop, anyone. And how many of them don't put their hand up? And that really, really saddens me. And I do notice a difference when the young people do come back and say, oh, I did text that adult, we did go for a walk in the park, I did do what you said and just spoke to them. They don't need to fix you, but just to get it out and be heard. But yeah, there's a lot of young people that need that attention. So yeah, that's what Head Held High does, and I feel very passionate about it. It's definitely not easy keeping your business going during a pandemic and post, but yeah, I am a fighter, which everybody sees when they work with me.
Sure. What percentage of your, let's call them clients, or how do you refer to them? To the
delegates, participants, delegates.
What percentage are male and what percentage are female?
With the young people on the verge of exclusion and behavior issues, the majority are male. I would have to say 80%, which is a shame. I mean, we do work with girls as well. There's such pressure on having bravado, and I experienced something once which was between two teenage boys, and they were best friends, and I reenact it in other workshops that I do. But one of them was standing up, the other one was sitting down, and the guy sitting down said something that upset his friend, and they're really close mates. And this guy standing up walked over to his friend, tipped the chair with him in it, and really came up into his face and said, don't you dare do that again. This is in front of the whole class. And I bent down, I had to stop everything. And it took me 20 minutes to get this young man, and these guys are really close, to actually say, I felt vulnerable. I didn't like him coming in my space. But most of the time it was, no, I'm fine. Get on with it. Allow it. It's fine. There's such pressure on them. And that's a disease in itself, because there's no space or time to reveal the true person, because you're bothered about, how you're coming across or how you look. And more men need to be able to show their vulnerability, and I'm sure you know that, and speak about their emotions. But yeah, it's the majority young men in that sector.
And it's not like women are not as much at risk as men, but I think women turn it back onto themselves. um, the society allows them to be vulnerable, so they don't put up. I know I'm stereotyping, but they don't put up as much of the bravado, and they'll turn it on themselves and self-harm and that sort of thing. So it's a different manifestation of the same trauma, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, self-harming is also very big in this country. And again, it's a majority male. But I mean, women are involved in this, but we just naturally, talk more. Our hormones are different, and we're emotional beings. So we get out that the girls I find can be more bitchy and turn against each other, but not in such an inherent way of like, I've got to, be the biggest person walking in the room. It saddens and shocks me how long it can take for a young man to actually share how they feel without feeling like the world's going to crumble, or I'm going to lose my friends, or I'm going to seem a wuss. I don't know if you use that word in your country, but yeah.
So you work with the schools. I would imagine you work with boys clubs, community centers, that sort of thing. As referral sources.
I mean, the challenge with this work is it's all funding based. So we have lots of organizations, whether it's people working with young adults involved in domestic violence or youth offending teams, and then we have to hunt out these bids, and then the work flows when we can just call up the organization and say, send us 8 people, we can work with them over 6 weeks, get stuck in, achieve results, move on. I've been doing it for 9 years, and my vision this year is to somehow find an organization or a corporate or business who could sponsor us even for a year, so we could make plans. I have coaches emailing me saying, Tash, when's the next bit of work? And it's very frustrating. There's a secondary school in Southwark that has got very high knife crime rate, and one of the teachers said, I've got 80 young people to send to you, Tash, and he's got parents standing outside screaming at him as well. They're not supported, and we have to scramble around. And this stuff is important, and I know curriculum, you need to study it, but the behavior issue is a real issue.
Yeah. And this is not a good time in England. You're about to have a harsh winter with utility bills. You're probably already seeing increase in the utility bills, gasoline. So it's a difficult time to be raising money, isn't it?
Yeah, very, very challenging indeed. It does push you to think out of the box. It's not an easy time. I'm hearing it from a lot of grassroots organizations. I don't know how it is on your side, but I mean, we're getting rejection upon rejection, and generally the responses are, we're all being oversubscribed. So, another organization fits the criteria just a little bit more. It's quite a tedious way of existing as well, just to constantly do these bids, but things are, financially getting tougher. I'm seeing it all around. And there is this sort of fight in my belly of like, no, I'm not going to jack it in. And I don't know, but you may feel this, but when you're self-employed, it's very hard to go back. Like, I can't imagine, going and working in, I was going to say Boots. I don't know if you know Boots, the chemist. No, you don't, but you may have the equivalent. But once you've been self-employed, it's quite difficult. To go back.
And there probably is a company, and maybe some of our listeners can help us think on that. There probably is a company whose mission really dovetails with what yours is, that focuses on young men, that could embrace this mission. And I'm even thinking there's a subscription shaving company that, let's see, what is that called? Dollar Shave, something Shave Club, where you subscribe to shaving cream and blades and all that. And it got really popular during the pandemic, but maybe something like that focuses on men's health, men's grooming, that sort of thing, could take this sort of idea under their wing. So
That's a really good idea. I always get in this sort of small frame of mind because I end up sort of employing. I had a fundraiser for 3 months and she had to stop before the summer. I said I'll get back in touch. We have to see if we've got funding coming in for September. And these are the sort of ideas that if I wasn't juggling 100 things, I think, oh yeah, that's great. And I'll remember what you just said, because something like that would be perfect. And there are other organizations. You just reminded me, I think it's an American company, the Passion Prison Project. Did I mention them last time we spoke? I think that
it sounds vaguely familiar.
Oh, there's an amazing video that they put out on YouTube, and there's a lady standing in on the prison grounds, and she's just a massive circle of men, and she's just asking really simple questions like, how many of you felt ignored as a child? Step forward. How many of you didn't do well at school? Just really basic things. And the response was amazing. Some of these guys, 50 something men saying that was the happiest day of my life, just to be acknowledged and heard. And yeah, if we can team up, and I'm hoping there's a billion-dollar business out there with similar objectives. I just need to spend some time on schmoozing them and bribing
them. Anybody who's watching that has an idea of and we'll get some more examples of the work that they're doing. Put it in the notes below, in the comments below.
Aww.
And she can research those. So talk a little bit about some of the programming and what happens in the programming. Take us into a classroom. Walk us through what happens and what it feels like and what you experience as a coach in that and what you're seeing.
Okay, well, I could do the comedy. I could give you an outline of one comedy course, Stand Up for Yourself, or the Best You is the behavior program. I kind of feel like maybe the behavior program. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that probably is better. And I have done stand up one time.
Did you?
And that to me, that is the most difficult art form. I've also done theater. It's the most difficult art form. So you are giving them quite a challenge to get up there and do that. It's so hard.
And my question to you, I mean, did you manage to make them laugh, and how did you feel when you did? Because that is why we do it, when you're standing on your own. And
a little bit, but it mainly helped me realize how difficult it is, because it's just you.
Yeah.
It's all about timing.
Yeah.
There's so much, and it's even 10 times more difficult than improv, because you've got other people working with you to play off of. So, and so anyway, I have a great appreciation. Why don't you do both? Take us inside of our classroom activity that's not about comedy, and then do one about comedy. And use your dramatic skills to make it come alive for us.
Oh my gosh. I'm not gonna imagine you're a 15-year-old young man that's looking at me like he wants to kill me. I'll describe what we do. So with the Best You, we work with a group of up to 8 young people. We keep the group small because they all need as much attention as possible. They'll come in and we do an exercise called Passion Blaster, which is just standing up and just talking about anything you feel strongly about. And it's such a simple exercise, but it brings so much resistance, because you have so many people that sit there and they feel confident talking over you or looking at you like a piece of rubbish, or I hear and see everything. So I'm so used to someone looking me up and down and like whispering something under their breath, and they look so shocked when I pick them up on it. But literally it could be, stand up, talk about your favorite Netflix series for a minute, or your opinion on social media, your anger about climate change, anything. It brings so much resistance. We finally get them up, and young people do have a tendency of just giving you the minimum, like, I'm just passionate about climate change. Like, yeah, what more is there to say? Or, I liked Atypical on Netflix. Okay, could you tell me a bit about it? Well, it was just good, wasn't it? Imagine that I've never seen it. I don't know what it's about. So a lot of young people get used to, I think, adults constantly dragging the information out of them instead of them using their assertiveness. So we also we work on assertive behavior and transforming aggressive responses into assertiveness. So over the second workshop, we asked them, is there someone in your life that triggers your anger? You don't need to say who it is. And we throw out some examples. Teacher, there could be a shopkeeper that gives you a dirty look every time you walk in there because they think you're going to nick something. Whatever it is, a parent. Have you thought of that person? Yeah. You're going to get into partners and you're going to role play a scenario where they trigger your anger. And you need to respond assertively using 3 steps. So firstly, acknowledge that you've upset them. I'm sorry I upset you, or I can see you're angry. Explain the situation. Here's my comedy. I was sleeping with your girlfriend. No, I'm not going to use that as an example. But, I was talking about you behind your back in the playground and then they need to find a resolution, because I wasn't confident to come up to you. But next time, I know I need to talk to you about my issues, blah, blah, blah. It's quite a simple exercise again, but it's very, very difficult to do because one of them's the aggressor. And it's just very easy to be aggressive. We can all do it. You're in a bad mood, you take it out on someone else. So if you've got whether it's a angry teacher, why are you late? You keep coming in and disrupting my class, blah, blah, blah. And often the teacher will just get a 1-word answer. I'm just late, or sorry, but nothing. And I remember I said to a girl, be honest, why are you late every day? And she said, Tash, the honest answer is I spend 5 hours in front of the mirror every morning. And she said, I think I've got an issue with it. And I went, okay, well, thank you for your honesty. Even if you said that to your teacher, they would have more respect for you because they would see you're wanting to change this, or you're not scared to show your vulnerability. And then the communication flows more than if you just walk in and your head's down and you're like, yeah, whatever. So this role playing, it's not easy. It takes ages. It's fantastic when they feel that change inside and they start taking control of the situation, because knife crime and youth violence is so high in this country. It's one of the easiest things to do is grab a weapon from your kitchen and go out, or someone's shoving £1,000 in your hands if you stand and watch and keep watch or whatever. To be assertive and to find that strong voice and turn something negative around it. We all have to practice it, and we share experiences. And I say to them, I'm 48 years old and I have a challenging time with this person, and every time I do this exercise it reminds me I need to go away and put this in my life. So anywhere that we can share those personal experiences, we do. It's a very profound exercise. We also work on personal statements, so then they start looking at their career goals, and then they start taking it more seriously. They get a bit excited when they realize, I can stick down babysitting or dog walking on a CV. I'll say to them, no one's expecting a 14, 15-year-old to have been the CEO of some corporate organization, but someone has left you in charge of a 5-year-old. They must think you are responsible for that. Let's stick it down. So it's very proactive. And then every week they commit to some sort of exercise. It could be, I'm going to text my mum back when she chases me. Stop being the child and reassure your mum so you can keep in the flow. She's not sitting at home worried about you. And then it might be, I'm going to research what I need to actually be a footballer, rather than just walk around going, I can treat everyone like crap because I know I'm going to be a footballer. Well, we'll say, well, it's not going to happen, So that's, yeah.
What's the ideal time frame for you to have someone, to have a group together?
Well, ideally, I would say about 8 weeks for 2 hours a week. Because funding is quite tight, we've got a program that's 6 weeks, 1.5 hours a week. And in the 5th week, we take them to the anti-knife crime charity. There's a prison cell set up. They meet an actor who's so realistic. They believe that he's, been inside, and they learn about the facts of knife crime prevention. They see footage of the family and the impact it's had on friends and family. It's a powerful program for 6 weeks, but if you have those extra couple of weeks, you can just start monitoring their progress. You can see how what they're putting in their life that's making a difference. And then ideally we'd go back again a few months later. Again, it just depends on what funding we're going for, but it makes such a difference if we can go back 3 months later and say, how are you getting on? And they say, oh, I've stopped having detentions, or I'm not in the inclusion unit anymore. And it's wonderful, because you affect one person and it has a ripple effect.
Let's talk underneath this a little bit. What do you think are the cultural phenomena that leads to this in your culture? What's the causation? And Americans think of Brits as so genteel, and we don't have a vision of this, because we're thinking London, we're not thinking Liverpool, we're not thinking some of the industrial areas. But talk a little bit about what are some of the cultural influences that lead to this in your country?
Well, I can only speak from my opinion, but there is a massive gap between poverty and wealth. And I'm sure you feel that in your country, but here it's like the richer are getting richer. There's a massive lack of care from our government. You can feel it, and you can feel these people have never really experienced poverty. So the poorer are really getting poorer. Like during the pandemic, the food banks were full. Unemployment was at its highest, mental health issues for young people. When you grow up, I remember speaking to a young guy, and he went, I have to walk around my environment with a screwed up face to protect me. I can't just walk around looking normal. I've got to look like the hard man. I think poverty has a massive impact on it. Lack of opportunity, your environment. If you've got, I was a single mom. I am a single mom, but he's 21, managed to get into drama school. He's in his 3rd year, he's moved out. But I remember when I had £3 to buy him dinner. But when I work with these, I've managed to build up. But when I work with these young people and I hear about their lives, or you see that, there's so many young people that are living with a grandma or an uncle or an auntie. We might not, they might not want to share their story, but you can see that it's not the ideal situation. So, lack of opportunity, the fact that, grassroots organizations and charities shouldn't be scrambling around trying to find money, when what they're doing is they're working with, disadvantaged people, the underdog of society. It's wrong, and then the richest people I know are the tightest, and then the ones that have got nothing are the ones that go, yeah, I'll give you everything, come around my house, I'll give you whatever I've got. I remember going to a talk once, and I wanted to walk out, and she was a middle class white woman, which I suppose that's how I identify as, but I remember her summing up the issue in our country as it's all down to video games. And I was stirring inside. My friend and myself actually did walk out sneakily, but not at that point. But she just blamed it all on violent video games. And I just thought, no, it's too simple. And you're standing there, come into one of my workshops, and you realize it's not that. Head held high. My sort of tagline is, we run workshops to encourage you to become a true product of yourself, and not your environment, your past, or your limiting self-beliefs. And I think that's the challenge for all of us. We only know our past. We only know the actions we've taken in the past. We only know the environment, the family that we've grown up with. If you're around a violent family, if you're, we know how stressful life is. If you've got a parent who's too stressed to give you the attention that you need, it has an impact. But to be able to create a new, and I'm quite a spiritual person, I use the word karma a lot, to change that family karma and go, actually, I'm going to take some new steps. It takes work, and often we need a helping hand. I'm hoping that was clear, but it's very obvious. The homelessness in this country, you can just see it more and more. And I find it sickening where we put our money.
I know that comparing misery is maybe not very helpful, but can you compare, do you have friends in the States, and can you compare the environment? And I think the only thing I was thinking as you were talking that could make it worse there in Britain is that your sense of class structure and social structure may be more embedded in the culture than it is here.
Really? And what would you say is the difference where you are? I don't have friends in the States. I've got a dream to go to New York and do 3 nights at a comedy club, and I've got New York comedy clubs emailing me constantly because I always contact them, but then I don't ever go to the next step. But I don't know America. It's a place that I want to go to, but what do you feel is the difference where you are compared to us?
I don't think we have the history of segmentation of cultural, societal strata that you do. This is, I'm a student of history.
Yeah.
So, but this is not from an in-depth observation, but I think that you have embedded in your culture more of a sense of social strata, and maybe it's more difficult to move from one social level to a higher social level.
I mean, I don't know about your benefit system, but in this country, the benefit system, there's something called universal credit, which encompasses all the different benefits that you can be on. And I was coaching 60 unemployed people, my age, they want to set up their business, but everybody's terrified. And I was in that position of taking a step forward, because you're like, well, how can I take a step forward? They'll stop paying my rent, or this is going to go down if I earn £30. It's a poverty pact. It's like a benefit trap. It's very, very hard to get out of. So you start doing cash in hand work, and the whole, I don't know if you know about county lines in this country, but the drugs business and grooming young kids and getting a young person to sit on a train and go to the countryside with some cocaine for £1,000 is very appealing to a young person who's not come from a financially stable home, and you get that why are you gonna, I've had young people go, why am I going to stop doing that? Why am I going to go and work for £10 an hour? But it's the benefit system is very, very hard to get out of in this country. That's interesting.
One thing that you do have that we don't have is a healthcare safety net of some sort.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the quality is for the very lowest poverty line, but and we don't have a very good welfare system, except for it's very temporary, and women with children have a better chance of getting it. So I don't think our social safety net is as strong as yours is.
Yeah. I suppose there's pros and cons. It doesn't feel like it's like that in this country, and the NHS are there to support everyone. Obviously, if you can afford private healthcare. I've never had private healthcare, but what I hear from friends, a completely different experience. But yeah, I think from that side, we can say we win.
Yeah. But we have a lot of the same social problems, especially in the urban areas, and a lot of gang activity, and a lot of minorities that get caught up in that, with that lack of support, family support, dads not being at home. So I think we have a lot of the same phenomenon, and in a way we may have a more macho culture than you do because of our our beginnings of the Wild West individual, our focus on individualism, and you're on your own, more than I think in Britain and in the on the continent. But anyway,
It's
I don't know how
interesting.
much good it does to compare. But
No, but it makes me want to. I wonder how confident I'd be if I, walked into a room of, in America. I remember when I set out my business, I thought I want to take this to America. Obviously, there's lots of organizations doing this type of work. It takes some balls, doesn't it, to walk in a room and, when I set my business up, I was getting so used to nobody smiling at me. It was just such a joy when somebody bothered to push out a smile, but you have to really pierce through that. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see this type of work in your country. Yeah, so that's the kind of behavior side of stuff.
And there are a lot of organizations that focus on this problem, as well as focus on problems with women, that young women are having. And there is a lot of that, and they're having challenges with funding. So I suspect it's not that much different. Well, let's switch gears. Let's totally switch gears and move to comedy and talk about, you've just written a pilot. Talk about your comedy, where it comes from, your sense of humor and what's funny to you. Let's just talk comedy.
Oh, let's try. We'll do our best to try and have a laugh. I did a performing arts degree back in 1998, I think, and I came out and I started doing stand-up comedy, and then I got pregnant quite quickly. I was going to say out of the blue, but obviously an act has to happen for one to get pregnant. But when I started doing stand-up again, I started talking about becoming a single mum, and because I didn't know the guy very well. Oh God, this isn't going to be good, is it? Okay, listeners, don't judge me. I'm actually on here because I'm trying to find the father of my 21-year-old son. I'm joking. So one of my opening.
So if anyone knows the father of her son, will you put it down in the comments below? If you have any idea, maybe show a picture of your son, and we'll see if we can match the father.
That would be lovely to tick that off my bucket list before I die. So my opening line was, have you ever met someone when you know you can feel it in your heart, your soul, your spirit, and this is the man I'm going to end up a single parent with? So my whole set was around not knowing this guy and then having nothing and doing bizarre jobs because I was so broke. And then when I set up Head Held High, I just really wanted to combine my passion for comedy with motivation, improving mental health. So we came up with the name Stand Up For Yourself. And again, it's a 6-week program, and we've been running it with clients from Mind, which is a big mental health charity in this country, but also youth offenders, ex-offenders, anyone. It's just so empowering, and it's been amazing. And as I said at the beginning, it just helps people dig into the dirt and find the funny. And we don't tell them what to talk about. We had a teenager. I mean, she used to look for fossils. She used to go out occasionally with her dad, and her humor was very dark for a teenager. It's quite funny. She was like, my dad's had loads of children. He barely remembers my name, but one Saturday he finally invited me out to just look for fossils, just me and my dad, and they actually found a dead body. This actually happened in real life. So on the first day, she's sharing this experience and she's crying. She's got tears in her eyes. By the end of the course, she completely surprised herself and did her whole stand-up set about this whole experience and finding the funny in it. I have a young person who's non-binary, really struggles with so many things, has ginger hair, wears check shirts, and their opening line was I identify as non-binary. A lot of people think I identify as Ed Sheeran because they look very similar. Do you know, or you must know Ed Sheeran. Do you know Ed Sheeran? You may recognize him. He has appeared in a few Netflix series. He's a very well-known English musician, but he's done a lot of comedy. But okay, I can see why I did.
Ed Sheeran.
EDS, yeah, and then surname SHEERAN. That was funny. You became my worst audience for a second, Mark, but we'll move on.
Sorry, it's about context, isn't it? But
yeah,
I definitely see the humor in a young girl going fossil hunting with her father for the first time and finding an entire body.
Yeah.
So I see the humor in that one.
All the humor. So that's again, you can stay. I can't really kick you out because this is only an audience of one anyway. So I'd be doing it to your Zoom backdrop. So we give them exercises like things like initially they'll join in and it'll be an anger rant. Just list everything out that pisses you off and then pick one thing and just talk about it for 2 minutes just to get young people expressing themselves, working on their eye contact, etc. And then often they'll pick something from that list that they want to do their stand-up about. And my pilot I've just written is called Coach, and it was something I've wanted to do for ages, which is write about something that's an exaggeration of my life. So you've got this coach who comes across, may not believe it now, but quite dynamic, very passionate about everybody. You know how easy it is to care about everybody else, but then cut to your own personal life. Like I had one of the clients say, Tash, you seem so sorted, and I couldn't stop laughing. And then when you seem so, everything's so in control. And then I shared a bit about my life because I'm very open and they couldn't believe it. So it was for a submission. The deadline was a couple of days ago and I only had a month to write it, and I've been co-writing something with someone else for 3 years, and I was like, right, I've got 4 weeks to churn out 35 pages. But it was wonderful and part of the plot is to this woman's working with this group of people. Some of them don't want to be there, and she's got 6 weeks to put on a stand-up comedy show. And then within that, you've got people with different issues, resistances, and then you've got her personal life in a complete mess. Her son's just left home and she's not used to living on her own. It's such a shock, but he's left a mannequin. Which actually happened. My son had this life-size mannequin called George, who he left lying on the bed when he moved out. And I couldn't work out whether I liked to keep the door open or not, whether it gave me comfort to see this polystyrene body on the bed. So yeah, that's called Coach, and I'm gonna start pitching it and hopefully develop this idea. There's so much comedy. I mean, I'm sure you see it in your life. There's so much comedy in life, and that I've done the most passionate speeches and then someone will just shout out, what time does this end, Tash? And you're nearly in tears because you're sharing your heart and soul. So yeah, I'm always seeing comedy in everything. And it's just, writing is just a great way of just having that pure release and picking out those best bits that I've experienced as a coach. But it's interesting. I'm sure you find it as well, but how we come across to the world, people think, you're not at home rocking backwards and forwards in a dark room, which I do regularly.
And who are you going to pitch this to?
So it's gone to at the moment it's gone to a TV company who have specifically advertised. They wanted something that was written by women for women, with a 45 years and older as a lead. I don't know if you know Better Things, but Pamela Adlon, I am a massive fan of. You don't know Pamela Adlon, right? She's from your country. You have to write that down and you have to watch. Okay, how are you going to watch Better Things? I think it's on BBC iPlayer in this country. Oh, Pamela Adlon was a single mum of 3 daughters. It's an American comedy drama. It's fantastic.
Okay, send that to us and Ed Sheeran's name. Put it in the show notes. I can understand why I'd miss the British stuff, but missing the American stuff, I don't know.
No, that's unacceptable. But she's my inspiration. She's very raw. She's very real. There's just so much richness in it. So I was sort of watching a lot of her yeah, helping me kind of motivate myself. But yeah,
Mhm.
so comedy's a big old passion, and we all need to laugh. You were saying you're a Sarah Silverman fan, and like, yeah, she's fantastic.
All right. Um, yes. And mention some of your other influences for your comedy.
My influences. I was a massive Woody Allen fan until he started having a relationship with his family member. I also think Dave Chappelle's brilliant, genius, especially his show as well after the yeah, we won't mention that. Okay, the incident in America, but that was pretty powerful. I'm a big Russell Brand fan. I know some people love, some people hate him. Gina Yashere, I think is big in your country. She's very good. Do you know her? Yeah,
Vaguely. What about
vaguely.
Nanette? Nanette.
That was very unique. Hannah Gagsby.
Yes.
Yes, and she had a show. My friends went to see a show in London. Yeah, that was really powerful. That was really interesting. I'd like to watch that again. Did you watch the show?
Mm-hmm. And she's done a second one.
She has, which I need to see. I mean, I found it incredibly thought-provoking, moving. It was funny, but there wasn't a fear of, like, you know, she didn't have to be funny every second. She had stuff to say, didn't she? I thought it was really interesting. I must see her second show, actually.
Dave Chappelle did a male version of what she did, you know, where it's not humor, it's not funny, but so he crossed that line, the same line that she did.
Okay. Oh, I'll check that out. And do you know Ricky Gervais? He's very big here. And Afterlife. Have you heard of that?
Yep.
Did you? I thought that was genius.
And let's see, what was the one where he was the Messiah? People saw him as a Messiah.
That wasn't a film, was it?
Yeah.
Not the.
And it was Ricky Gervais. Not Proof of Life. Oh well.
Was it Invention of Lying or something like that?
Yes.
I can't remember. I've seen it. Yeah. He's got a very unique sense of humor. But I thought Afterlife, I mean, that's smashed it in this country. People just absolutely loved it. I really like
Invention of Lying. Don't miss that. Very unique.
Okay. We're taking notes. I'll send a few things. I'll send you Ed Sheeran's album and I'll watch Invention of Lying. Yeah. And if anyone, can I plug my website quickly? Because we've got lots of stand-up comedy on there. And also we had, I don't know if you know, we had Dylan Moran, who performed, who's a well-known comedian here. But if you wanted to watch anything, it's www.headheldhigh.org.uk. If you knew any rich people, you could send me their names at tash@headheldhigh.org.uk. But it's been such a lovely opportunity to talk to you about this, and it makes me more want to jump on a plane, which I must do because crazy I haven't visited yet.
Well, and make sure that you come down south to the Tampa Bay area once you have had your fill of New York, which will take about a week.
Okay. And then
it's such a high energy place. And let's see. So also don't forget to, for those of you in the audience, pass along some ideas that that she can use to pursue funding sources. And I think they could be American, they can be European, because this is such a common problem. So let's help her find that funding niche where if you can associate with a brand that has a similar mission or a similar audience, like Men's Health, that sort of thing, then I think, because that's the challenge for not-for-profits, is finding that niche of a company that will stay with you and whose mission is close enough to yours,
Yeah.
whose audience is close enough to yours to maintain this relationship over time.
Yeah.
We as not-for-profits don't need just a one-time hit or even a one-year hit. We need commitment, and it may not be just one organization. It's probably best to have several so that you've got some variety and some diversity in case you lose one. So let's try to help support her mission.
Thank you,
And,
Mark. Can
and
you manage me? You'd be a great business consultant.
well,
Thank you.
I'm happy to be a sounding board anytime. So,
Oh, thank you so much.
well, thank you for being on the podcast. Seeing your passion for your work and for your mission, your comedy work and your mission, and seeing you flow between them, and see how one informs and supports the other is very supportive and encouraging. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. Really appreciate it.
All right. So everybody, we always have interesting guests, from discussions about sustainability to comedy and social service. So please tune in to with us on a weekly basis. You can find out how to support Thrive Co-Living Communities down in the show notes below. And there are many ways that you can support the podcast and our mission of creating co-living communities that are multi-generational, inclusive, and sustainable in terms of energy and the environment. So thank you so much for being with us. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for another great episode of the Thrive Co-Living Communities YouTube podcast. To learn more about our mission and how you can support our vision of creating co-living communities worldwide, please visit us at thrivecolivingcommunities.org. To receive advanced viewings of our podcast and other exclusive content, find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Thrive Co-Living Communities. You can also learn more ways to support our mission in the show notes below. Amazon Smile, GoFundMe, Kroger, and our own Thrive Gear store, where you can buy t-shirts, hats, and many other items. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.